Yo, picture this. Japan in the late 80s. While every martial art was busy flexing in its own corner, karate dudes kicking, boxers swinging, wrestlers throwing, one man goes, "Screw that. Let's mix it all." That's how Shudo was born. It's basically the godfather of MMA, a raw experiment before UFC even existed. Imagine discovering hip-hop before it blew up worldwide. That's the vibe. And trust me, this story gets wild. Shudo didn't pop up out of thin air. It was cooked up by Satoru Sayama, aka Tiger Mask. Yeah, the flashy pro wrestler. But he wasn't chasing theatrics. He wanted the real deal. He built Shudo as a total fight system where striking, grappling, and submissions weren't just allowed, they were mandatory. Back then, Japanese martial arts were all about tradition and stay in your lane. Sayama said, "Nah, let's break barriers." What he created was a testing ground for real combat, not stage fighting. Imagine being the rebel who smashes all the old school rules. That was Shudo's birthright. And little did the world know this blueprint would shape modern MMA forever. It wasn't just a sport. It was a revolution. Shudo proved that tradition could evolve without losing its soul. Crazy to think this started from a guy in a tiger mask, right? But a vision's only as strong as its rules, right? That's where Shudo got bold. Shudo's first rulebook in 1985 was revolutionary. Fighters weren't allowed to be specialists, they had to be hybrids. No hiding behind one style. Punches, check kicks, yup, throws, bring it, submissions, absolutely. The sport forced you to be complete, or get exposed fast. Matches had rounds, weight classes, refs, stuff we take for granted today, but back then, this was futuristic. And it wasn't polished like UFC pay-per-view. It was gritty. Bare gyms, smoky halls, crowds of purists shaking their heads while real fighters tested themselves. Shudo asked the ultimate question: what really happens when we throw every martial art into one cage? That mindset flipped combat sports upside down. It forced everyone watching to question what real fighting even meant. And the answers were wilder than anyone expected. And that difference, the raw experiment vibe, that's what gave Shudo its edge. Here's where Shudo separates itself. UFC later leaned on showbiz, trash talk, fireworks, walkouts. Shudo? Nah, it was pure technical warfare. Fighters had to flow like water between striking and grappling. If you boxed stiff, you got slammed. If you only wrestled, you ate knees. It forced creativity, not just toughness. Imagine a chess match where every move risks you getting knocked out. That's Shudo. Fans weren't watching for personalities, they came to see skills evolve in real time. And for fighters, it wasn't about fame. It was about proving your style actually worked against someone trained to kill your rhythm. That raw focus, that's what makes Shudo timeless. It wasn't about building stars, it was about building warriors. And honestly, that's way cooler than scripted hype. And to build warriors like that, the training had to hit different. Shudo gyms weren't glamorous, they were grindhouses. Training meant hours of sparring with different specialists until your weaknesses screamed. One day you're getting pieced up by a Muay Thai striker, next day you're drowning under a judo black belt. Fighters learned survival through exposure. You couldn't cherry-pick drills, you had to eat everything. The vibe was chaos, but controlled chaos. Sayama believed real fights are unpredictable, so training had to be unpredictable too. That's why Shudo fighters developed this crazy adaptability. You throw them anywhere, any situation, they adjust. It wasn't just about power, it was about making your body and brain one smooth weapon. And that grind built fighters who could thrive under pressure. That's why Shudo training still inspires MMA gyms today. Imagine walking into practice and knowing every day is survival mode. That's Shudo. But Shudo's influence didn't just stay locked inside Japan's gyms. It started to ripple worldwide. Here's the wild part. While UFC exploded in the US in 1993, Shudo had already laid the tracks. American fans thought UFC was the first real MMA experiment. Nah. Japan had been cooking with Shooto for years. Fighters trained under this system walked into global MMA with a serious head start. European gyms, even early American camps, secretly borrowed Shooto's blueprint: cross-training drills, hybrid sparring, adaptability rules. Hardcore fans knew the truth. Vegas might have made MMA famous, but Shudo gave it DNA. Without Shudo, the fight world we know today would look way different. It's like the underground mixtape before the platinum album. If you know the roots, you respect the art even more. And Shudo's roots run deeper than people realize. And speaking of roots, let's talk about the legends who made Shudo unforgettable. Shudo wasn't just a system, it built icons. Rumina Sato was a highlight reel walking. Shudo's mental side is slept on heavy. Fighters weren't just training muscles, they were conditioning their minds. Imagine gasping for air while a dude's choking you out and still staying calm enough to escape, or getting dropped with a shot but keeping your head clear enough to counter. That mindset, priceless. Shudo drills patience under pressure. It teaches you to problem solve while chaos rains down. And honestly, it bleeds outside the cage. That same calm under stress helps in real life, work, relationships, whatever. Shudo builds fighters who aren't just tough in the body, they're unshakable in the mind. And in a world full of stress, that mental edge is more powerful than any knockout punch. It's the secret weapon most people overlook. Mental fortitude, Shudo's deadliest weapon you never see coming. And even now, decades later, Shudo's still making noise on the fight scene. Fast forward, and Shudo's still alive and kicking in Japan. It may not headline ESPN, but it's a respected proving ground. Hungry fighters use it as a launchpad before chasing UFC, Bellator, or ONE championship. International athletes still fly out just to test themselves in Shudo's crucible. It's like the underground hip-hop scene. Maybe not mainstream, but if you know, you know. Real fight fans respect Shudo because it stays true to the craft. No gimmicks, no trash talk, just fighters sharpening iron against iron. That's rare in today's fight culture. And maybe that's exactly why Shudo feels so authentic. It never sold out. It just kept evolving in its own lane. Think of it as MMA's underground temple. It's still holy ground for real fighters. Which brings us to the big question. Why should you care about Shudo? So, why should you, modern fight fans scrolling on YouTube, care about Shudo? Because without it, MMA wouldn't be what it is today. Shudo laid down the groundwork before UFC made it flashy. It showed the world that blending styles wasn't just hype, it was the future. Respect, adaptability, mental toughness, that's Shudo's DNA. And those lessons go beyond fighting. Life throws punches too. How you adapt, that's where Shudo wisdom shines. Next time you're watching UFC fireworks, remember, the quiet storm that made it all possible came from Japan. Shudo proves roots matter, and respecting those roots makes you appreciate the fight game on a whole new level. Bottom line, if you love MMA, you owe Shudo a salute. So here's the deal. Before the Vegas lights, before the trash talk, before MMA became pop culture, there was Shudo. Raw, gritty, ahead of its time. Respect the roots, because without Shudo, the fight game would look nothing like it does today. And that's facts.